Hello and welcome to the first UKVS coaching session. This month, we're going to look at growth mindset. We're going to think, how can we set ourselves up for this school year? How can we make ourselves the most successful in whatever we want to achieve, whether it's school or maybe a sport you play or a musical instrument, whatever it is you want to do. Growth mindset will help you improve and get past those hurdles. So you might see here on the screen that we've got our little character, growth mindset. Growth mindset is one of the 4 key values that we have at UKVS. Growth mindset, diversity and inclusion, curiosity and innovation. So this month, we're going to talk about growth mindset. Now, I want you to have a think. What makes someone a really good student? What makes them the most successful in class? Is it maybe that they're really smart? Or is it just that they work really hard? Is it that they keep trying the same thing over and over again? Or do they try different things to try and get over problems? Now, I obviously haven't been at school in a long time, so it's been a while since I've had to really work my growth mindset when it comes to learning a new skill. However, recently, I have taken up a new sport, which is paragliding, which in itself is a scary thing. You put up a parachute and then you walk off the end of a hill. And the mistakes that could be made with that could be quite catastrophic. If I do something wrong, I could seriously hurt myself or I could die, which makes making those mistakes feel a little bit more scary. So I found myself recently reflecting on my mistakes a lot. So here's a little video of one of the mistakes I made the other day. So I'm just pointing here to where I should have landed beyond those trees. This is where I came in, not ideal. And this is my brand new glider in a bunch of thistles. Obviously, that was a bit of a mistake. I shouldn't have landed in that field. There were lots of barriers. There were lots of things that could have gone wrong. There were trees in the way. And when I landed, I put my glider into a thistle bush, which took me 30 minutes to get out. So this mistake I learned from. I learned that where the landing field, there's a better approach. If I'd come from the other way, I wouldn't have had as many hurdles to jump over. I learned if I had read the wind a bit better, I might have landed where I meant to. All of these mistakes, these little mistakes, I really learned from. And what I found really useful is sharing my mistakes with other people, because even your own mistakes will teach you your own mistakes will teach you the best in the best way. However, learning from other people's mistakes can also be really useful. Your mistakes will be your best teacher if you let yourself learn from them. So when you make a mistake, it's not a reflection on you. It's just that you haven't quite gotten to that point yet. And that word yet, we will talk a lot about in a little bit. So growth mindset is all about learning and growing from our mistakes. So have a think, have a moment. What mistakes have you made recently that you could have learned from? Maybe you made a mistake in maths where you wrote down the wrong number from a calculator. Maybe you played a wrong note on a musical instrument, or maybe you learned that a word means something different to what you thought it meant. All of those mistakes that you've made, no matter how small they are, you will have learned from them. And if you can make sure that those are not holding you back, being able to make mistakes means that you will be able to have a growth mindset. Okay. So there are two different mindsets. There is a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. So some people have a fixed mindset, which means they see things in a very fixed way. Once they've made a mistake or they think they can't do something, that's them. They're done. They're fixed. They're fixed on that way of thinking. Some people have a growth mindset, and a growth mindset means that they can see that things can change. They can learn from their mistakes and they can keep trying. So have a think at the moment, at this exact point in time, be honest with yourself. Do you think you have a fixed mindset or do you have a growth mindset? And you can have both of them over your life, different points in your life. Sometimes it's important to have a fixed mindset. If you've got something you really need to do, having a fixed mindset on that thing, that's really important. However, normally a growth mindset, when you're learning and enjoying the world, it's important to have a growth mindset to see how things can continue on. And this is something I still have to work on. I'm a grown adult and I'm still working on making sure that I have a growth mindset. These are things you have to work on. So people who have a fixed mindset, they're not necessarily, they're going to sort of, when they get feedback, they might find it a bit negative. So say you've just done a test and you weren't sure, you didn't do too well on it. And when your teacher gives you back your results, you see you didn't do very well. And the teacher says, oh, you could have done this a bit better. Sometimes that's really hard to take on. So you could have a fixed mindset and just ignore that feedback and decide you're not very good at this. Or you can learn from your mistakes and say, okay, well, I did really well in questions 1, 3, 5, and 6. But question 2 was really hard. What was question 2 about? Question 2, okay, question 2 was long division. All right, so maybe I need to work on my long division. Maybe I need to figure out a way to keep working on that and figure out a way that works for me. Obviously, the way I tried didn't work. So let's find a different way that will help you. Someone with a fixed mindset doesn't tend to try once they and gives up easily. Once they reach that first block in their fixed mindset, you're like, oh, too hard, gonna stop. Whereas someone with a growth mindset will keep putting in the effort. They keep on going. They keep trying, not always from trying the same thing over and over again. Okay, so you want to, if you're finding something isn't working, I'm not saying do the same thing and the same thing and the same thing. It's a sign of insanity. But what I'm saying is find a different way and try again. If that doesn't work, find another way. Try again. Okay. People who have fixed mindsets tend to really avoid challenges. So they don't like the idea of finding things difficult. So say you're in English class and someone puts up, and the teacher puts up 3 levels of questions, and you know you can do the first one because the first one's easy. Why would I not do the first one that's easy? I can do that easy, so I'll do that. And someone with a growth mindset will say, well, I know I can do the first question. That's really, I can do that easily. I'm not sure I can do the second one. I will try the second one because that's the only way I am going to improve. It's the only way you're going to get better at something is by challenging yourself into harder and harder things. Knowing that mistakes are not always bad, knowing that you can learn from them is a really key part of growth mindset, as we talked about before as well. So there's a key word that I want you to start putting into your vocabulary. Okay, so I want you to start thinking about the word yet. Okay, so here we've got little curiosity. Curiosity is wandering off, looking at their map, and they've come to a fork in the road. They can choose the easy route and go into the done it before woods, just do a loop around and come back to the same place they started. They're not going to get any further, but they will be doing something with their time. Instead, they could take the not yet road and go up some difficult mountains, down the side of some mountains, over some peaks, probably finding it quite difficult. But if they accept that challenge, they're going to be more successful. They're going to get further from where they started. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to stay the same as you are right now. So using that word yet, how can we change our language inside our head so that we can use the word yet to really make us feel like we are succeeding? So say you think you can't do maths. I just can't do maths. I can't do maths problems. If you change that to I can't do this math problem yet, that means that you have got your growth mindset on. You're like, well, I can't do it right now. But if I keep pushing through my mistakes, I keep challenging myself, I keep going and I keep trying different ways, I can get there. Or I haven't learned to spell that word yet. You can always improve on this, okay? You can always learn more. You can always keep trying. Or what about the I can't jump that high yet? Keep working at it and you will get to the point where maybe you can jump that high. You learn from your mistakes and you figure out, how can I get to that point where I will succeed at the thing I want to do? Once you reach the top of that mountain, that Mount Success, you've reached your goal, what do you do next? Do you think that you just stop, which is, I guess, an option, but why not push yourself further? So, how do we know that this works? How do we know that this constant stimulation in our brain, this constant challenging ourselves, this constant working through things, how do we know that it works? Well, I'm your science teacher, so I can tell you science. There was a study done comparing two different groups of rats. One group of rats were given lots and lots of stimulation. They were given lots of activities to do. They were given really complicated ways to get into their food that they had to work really hard at. Another set of rats were just given a cage to be in, not very interesting, given their food at the same time every day. They didn't have to work for it. They didn't do anything too complicated. Now, when after a while, the scientists measured the size of the brains of these rats, and they found that the rats that were given lots of stimulation and lots of challenges had far more neurons in their brain. Neurons are the cells in your brain that connect everything and make your brain work. The more dense your neurons, the more effective you are at thinking, problem solving, figuring out how to solve those mistakes. Those rats that had not been given the challenge, those rats, they had much fewer neurons. So they weren't able to actually solve problems as well as the rats that were given lots of challenges. And this makes sense if you think about it. If you want to get really big and buff and strong and you want to have these big guns and be like, oh yeah, look at me, I'm so strong, you have to go to the gym, right? You can't just sit there and hope for big muscles. You have to go and work out. You have to work your muscles to make them big and strong. And the same can be said for your brain. If you give your brain challenges, if you give your brain problem-solving tasks and use your growth mindset, you're going to become better at it. You're going to find it easier. You're going to find it more challenge. You're going to find your challenges harder to achieve, but actually doing it a lot easier. So have a think now. What are some goals that you want? Maybe it's a really small thing like, I don't know, I want to learn how to spell a certain word, or I want to learn how to do long division. Whatever the thing is, if you think about it and if you decide, okay, that's going to be my first little goal, first little challenge, the first challenge you want to achieve, take that challenge and achieve it. Learn from your mistakes, solve it. Then pick a bigger challenge. You pick a bigger challenge, your brain's going to grow even more. Much like your muscles, if you lift heavier and heavier weights, you'll get bigger muscles. Same thing for your brain. The bigger your challenge, the more easily your brain will be able to adapt to these things. All right. So that is our first coaching session on growth mindset. You now have a worksheet in front of you that's going to have some questions on it. I want you to really sit and think. There is no right answer for these questions. Really, there isn't. It's entirely up to you. This is not maths. This is not science. There's no right answer. It's whatever you think is going to help you the most achieve what you want. So spend some time and think, how can I challenge myself? How can I make this better? And really concentrate and think, what are going to be your goals? When you come to our coaching sessions, make sure you bring along your worksheet and we'll go through them. We'll talk about them and we'll figure out how are you going to achieve and check that things are possible. So make sure that your goals are achievable. All right. Thank you very much. Bye.